So a very good evening, students. So this is welcome to the third session of ethics answer writing workshop. So what we have been broadly doing in the last two classes. Let's rework on whatever we have been trying to cover in these classes. So if we speak broadly of the ethics preparation, I told you before also we have different levels of ethics preparation. First thing is you should understand, have a basic clarity, conceptual clarity on what all are the different terms of the syllabus. What does each of these terms mean? Broad understanding of the syllabus is the first thing you have to make. You can refer some books. Lexicon is by far one of the best books available in the market. Beyond that, what you can do, you should have to improve your answer writing. You should have very specific strategies. Sometimes, at many times, you come across high level of subjectivity in the ethics. What really matters in ethics become highly blurred. It's become little challenging, especially for students from the science background or science from technical background students. They cannot comprehend the level of subjectivity the subject is having, and there is so many levels of misguidance available in the market also, making the subject more subjective than it is. So despite having your stance on different ethical issues can vary, for the perspective of the exam, you should need to break down the subjectivity. You should have to have an understanding on what does different ethical perspectives means. And in this regard, there is absolute objectivity. You cannot afford to have your preparation or your thought process put in the matter of subjectivity. So this is what we whole have been trying. We have been trying to break down the process of brainstorming in ethics questions. How you can brainstorm different ethics topics. How you can brainstorm what all different frameworks or thought processes you can apply to different parts of the syllabus. In the first class, we dealt with majorly personal ethics part, like ethics and human relations, ethics in private relations, ethics in public relations. All these kind of the matters we have dealt in the first class. In the second class, our major focus was on administrative ethics. In third class, we focus on the applied part of ethics. Applied part of ethics plus some part of governance. Majorly the governance part. This will be our major focus for today's class. So this approach, how to generate points, how to brainstorm on different topics, how to build quality ethical arguments. This has been the whole focus of our discussions or the workshop program we are running. एंड इसका अलावा आपको क्या करना है, दो और चीज आपको एथिक्स प्रिपरेशन में आगे करना है. वन इज वैल्यू एडिशन मटेरियल. We need to have a certain collection of examples, certain collection of ready-made material where you can bahad for the exam, replicate in the exam, and you can forget it. But since you are 2024 aspirants, most of you will be planning to give attempt in after 1 year or so. So you should have a basic clarity on what exactly material are you going to use for this value addition. A decent collection of notes which you made on yourself, that is the best thing. There is no compromise on that. If that is not feasible, at least try to have a decent collection of any standard material. Any standard institute, it will work. If you want Kalam IAS, you can refer the MIB material which is available in our website. It has a hell lot of examples, hell lot of various examples from administrative perspective, from historical perspective, from contemporary personalities. All these relevant news to ethics in the last 2-3 years has been covered in that material. So finalize what value addition material you are going to study and add it to your preparation. After this, you have to give full length test, you have to give time bound test. Very again I am saying, if you are not bound by time, 3 hours you are sitting, you are just writing 13 answer, 14 answer, then it makes no sense. Try to attempt at least full paper within the 3 hours. This you have to do. Join some test series, here is where test series come to picture. At least write 2-3 tests before starting the prelims preparation itself. So this is your overall ethics preparation should be, and exactly in this ethics workshop we are focusing on the brainstorming element. How to bring diverse ethical arguments. We start today's class with, you might have given the paper. What is today's first question? Today's first question is all about the Russia-Ukraine war. Why we kept this question in picture is not because of Russia-Ukraine war. You might have already know the conflict going on between Israel and Palestine. So even though the Russia-Ukraine war, it is still continuing, we are having another war in the West Asia. So the world itself is going through different kind of disturbances, you can say wars and all. How you can apply ethical thought process into these developments. That is the main objective of putting the first question on Russia-Ukraine war. We'll see how you can apply whatever ethical knowledge, whatever theoretical perspective you have developed, whatever frameworks we have learned in the last classes, how you can use those frameworks to a contemporary development that is happening. And this is how you build your ethical perspective. Again, I'm saying things should be as clear, objective as possible. You apply you have certain theoretical knowledge, which we have read from the books, which we have read from different frameworks that discussed in the last class. Now we have taking a contemporary development and we're trying to apply these ethical perspectives. So this is a broad picture of what we are achieving through these workshop sessions. So in the introduction, these are different ways you can introduce the answer. You can simply give a definition type of introduction. If nothing else is striking in your mind, simply excuse me. Yeah. So you can give a definition type of introduction. In definition type of introduction, there are few elements you should keep in your mind. You are not required to learn all these technical definitions. World Bank in XYZ documents said all these. It's quite difficult to learn these kind of definitions for everything. So don't too much over focus on this. But what you should focus is on the key idea. When you are defining good governance, what does the key idea of good governance means? It's all about executing governance by upholding certain ethical principles or certain democratic values, upholding certain democratic values, then it is good governance. Similarly, we've spoken about accountability. Don't go for fancy definitions. What accountability is all about? Answerability to all the decisions or the actions you have taken. That is all about accountability. Integrity, adherence to certain principles, adherence to honesty, highest level of honesty. That is all about integrity. And integrity, we have seen the multiple variations. We have seen different kind of question on integrity coming from personal integrity, coming from administrative integrity. So administrative integrity, when you are speaking, you need to write an administrative definition of integrity. In that kind of question, don't give and write those definitions that doing right thing when no one is watching is integrity. For an administrator, this is not integrity. For an administrator, having values in line with the values of public service values, that is integrity. We have seen the definition in the DOPT manual also. So these are the two perspectives you should keep in mind when you write introduction by using definition. One thing is write simple definitions but stick to the exact meaning of these terms. You should not divert from the exact meaning of the term. Second thing, you should contextualize the definitions. If a question is asking on XYZ in the context of corporate governance, your definition should also take the meaning from the corporate governance. If integrity is asked from perspective of public administration, your definition should also take the elements of public administration. So this you should keep in the mind. If definition is not working, then you can contextualize. Mostly in the case of some statement is given. Then contextualize the meaning of this statement. You can start even with examples. So many new developments in the news you can connect with the syllabus terms, with the questions being asked. You can directly start with the examples also. In otherwise also in contextualized type of introduction, if you are writing a very trivial kind of introduction, always try to add one example in the introduction itself. Current affairs I already spoken. Taking a stance, this is like you have asked out in some question. Like in certain questions where there is no two stances, especially the questions on women empowerment, questions on child labor, it is too difficult to have a two different stands on these kind of matters. You might have seen one question of in 2023 paper, Jawaharlal Nehru statement on women empowerment. So it's not possible, it's very difficult to take a counter stance in these kind of question. If this kind of a topic is question is coming, if this kind of a quotation is coming, then you can even start the answer by making clear your stance, then giving the necessary arguments. So these are different ways you should introduce the answer. Now these are the whole list of different frameworks we have been learning so far. Starting from socialization, this you use in values. You have a question in 2023 paper where corruption is happening because of degeneration of values. Now what will you do to improve the value system of the society? To check the corruption. This was the overall exact, not the exact words, but this was the overall direction of the question. So in this question, what should be your perspective? This question is not too much about corruption, but more about values. How you should build these values, how you should improve the value system of society. Here you include the process, the thought process of socialization. What is socialization? Socialization happens at different levels. It starts from families. It starts from parents. It starts from schools. It goes to colleges. It goes to media. It goes to leaders. It goes to political parties. So bring all 1 or 2 points from all of these. You will easily get 10 points to develop 2 points on writing how to develop different value system in the society. Understanding how to use different ethical theories. We have seen 2 different kind of questions, exactly, especially related to quotation-based questions. First thing you have to look if the quotation is directly representing any theory or not. If it is directly representing any theory, we have given you the workbook materials and all. If you are a part of the MIP program, you might already got the 10 different workbooks for ethics. This 10 workbooks is your one set of consolidated notes. Why we are calling it workbook? If you have gone through it, you can get the sample downloaded from the website. It is having only one content in the one side of the paper, or you can say half of the one page. The rest half is completely left for you. What you have to do is, whenever you are reading newspapers, whenever you are reading some kind of other materials, like whenever you are reading for economy, you got a subject which have some ethical connotation. Then add that topic into your ethics notes. When you are reading history, you got a subject that has some ethical relevance to that part of the syllabus. Add this into your note. At least do this exercise for next 2 months till end of December. You will have a consolidated, personalized set of notes. And I am again saying, instead of being subjective or having a statement like having too much focus on the understanding of the different terms or ethics syllabus, try to make ethics study as objective as possible. Add your own example, bring your own personalization. This is the only way you bring your personalization into the paper. Otherwise, you will be dependent on some certain XYZ material. Everyone in the market will be reading the same material, same example and same arguments. And there is always limitations on this. If you bring your own examples, your own arguments, your own revision process improves. Your own understanding of the syllabus terms improves. So a lot of benefits you can associate with this. So go through this workbook, make use of this workbook. So in this workbook, what a point I am making is for all the ethical theories, from virtue ethics of Socrates to the capability approach of Amartya Sen, we have exhaustively covered the arguments in support and arguments against this theory. So learn these arguments. It's not about learning the arguments so that the direct question comes from this. Learn this because this is how you build your ethical arguments in the answers. If a quotation comes based on deontology, means is more important than everything. That is, its perspective is related to deontological perspective of ethics. So means is end in itself, something quotation like this. So how you are going to interpret is, how you are going to make different arguments in these kind of questions. It is by applying the arguments in support of deontology. Take your notes, go to the table, exact arguments given in there, just give some changes according to the language of the question, bring that argument into your answer. The whole process of bringing ethical arguments become easy. This is one way you are going to use the ethical theories. What is the other way? I will show in this class also. We have done this in the first class also. That means when you have to ethically analyze some developments. Here we analyze the war happening between 2 countries. We have to open up the different ethical dimensions regarding this. So in this we apply different theoretical perspectives. According to different theories, how is this going to open up? On this regard, we will build our perspective. This is how you use ethical theories in this paper. Now ethics, value, aptitude, frameworks, stakeholder approach, different ways you can improve. You can put the stakeholder approach in this. One of the classical example is the 2023 question. That is the moral integrity and professional efficiency in the context of corporate governance question. Duties of a civil servant, at least categorize the duties of civil servant under 5 different heads, starting from following law to managing people to policy implementation, policy formulation, different heads, leadership, office management, 10 different aspects of duties of a civil servant. You identify it, categorize it, and think on that regards. CAB framework, that is question related to attitude. We have seen last class a question on cognitive aspects, affective aspect, behavioral aspects. Now these two are like question related to emotional intelligence. You can write on components of emotional intelligence, different components of emotional intelligence, whatever, how it is going to be used. We have seen different components like self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, social skills, all these how you can bring into your answer writing arguments. Hierarchical framework, this we have taken from the DOPT manual. How DOPT manual categorizes the implementation of different values. We have shown one diagram also. You can get this material downloaded from the, simply Google searches DOPT manual on ethics in governance. You will get a 45-page document. At least go through it. If you can internalize the different levels, that whole document is based on 5 different levels. For every value, importance of integrity in, suppose in administration or in public administration in India, it has divided into 5 different levels. If you can integrate that process into your answer writing, that can bring a lot of changes, that can bring a lot of arguments into your answer writing. That we have followed in the hierarchical approach. Then life cycle approach. Here we have seen life cycle approach in multiple ways. For government scheme, you can use this life cycle approach. For a civil servant career, you can use life cycle approach. Here we see during war, current context questions also, you can apply the life cycle approach. So these are different tools where how you can brainstorm it. It is not necessary you should by heart each and every tools of this. Understand the crux of it. These are the different ways you can think on answer writing. This much understanding is you can make, then you can bring these elements into your paper. Exact what are the components you don't need to by heart. You just need to have a overall picture of this. Then apply this in your different type of question. At least put one framework. It becomes cakewalk to develop 10 different points. Seen in last 2 class also. We'll see many questions on today's class also. Now in conclusion, writing conclusion, we have discussed this in last class also. You can conclude with example. Is it started, sir, ma'am? Vijay Durga. Yeah, it's been old message. You can start with a quote. You can integrate current affairs into the conclusion. You can use government scheme, especially the Mission Karma Yogi scheme. I've discussed it in the last class also. You can use some national or international best practices also in conclusion. These are different ways you can conclude the answer. So on that regard, let's move ahead. So let's go through today's question. Go through the question. If you have written the answer, very good. If you have not written the answer, pause the video, read the question. What are you going to do? What framework you are going to approach, or how you are going to develop points for this question? Make a thought process, make an idea in your mind, then continue the video. If you're watching online, you can comment. Yeah. So let's read the question once. Quite a long question, 2022 question. Russia and Ukraine war has been going on for the last 7 months. Different countries have taken independent stance and actions keeping in view their own national interest. Kind of meaning to India as well as the West. We are all aware that the war has its own impact on different aspects of society, including human tragedy. Consequences of war it is speaking about. What are those ethical issues that are crucial to be considered while launching the war? So this is here the question is coming, and its continuation so far. Illustrate with justification the ethical issues involved in the given state of affairs. So what all you have to do, you have to bring out ethical issues and considerations while continuing war or while launching the war. This is exactly what is asked in the question. Now how you can approach this? In intro, what you will write? We have seen this kind of question before also, where there is a statement given and there is a question afterwards. So best is you utilize these arguments in support of this statement for you writing the introduction. You write about the statement, you write about Russia-Ukraine war, you write about the human tragedy in the Russia-Ukraine war, you write about stance of different countries and its impact on Russia-Ukraine war. So taking from the statement, you can give introduction to it. Now, whenever you are writing a statement that is either substantiating a statement or introduction is directly answering a part of the question. Some of the questions start with what is accountability. In that question, introduction itself will be the answer, one part of the answer of the and what is exactly asked in the question. In that case, you can write an extended introduction. If 2 pages you have, you can write the half of first page. You can make 2-3 points regarding the statement. You can make 2-3 points regarding substantiating statements. You can extend the introduction beyond 2 to 3 lines. If intro is not exactly meeting any demand of the question, in all that question, make intro as short as possible. 2 or 3 lines, that is enough. Second part, ethical issues and consideration. That will be the major part of your answer. 60 or 70% of your answer should be that. Then you have a 2-line conclusion regarding this. So this would be the overall structure of your answer writing. Let's see what is written. So in introduction, as I already told, what you have to bring out is the cost of war or the ethical human tragedy associated with the war. War inevitably leads to immense human suffering, regardless of the political justifications given by any side. More or less, we are not too much going into the Russia-Ukraine war because this was asked because of the context of the war happening there. You can think this perspective from the current war that is happening between Israel and Palestine. So according to UN, over 5,000 civilians have been killed in continuing Russia-Ukraine war. About 12 million people has been displaced due to this ongoing war. Still going on, and the level of human tragedy can still increase. So this is the first part of the question, that is ethical issues to be considered while launching the war and its continuation. So how you can build points on this, how you can brainstorm on this particular question. What approach we have used here is cause, action and effect. This is not just for war. You can use this methodology for n number of events that is happening. For government action, you can take an example. You can take this, apply this for women reservation bill that has been recently passed by the parliament. So think on these 3 elements: cause of the war, action of the war, and effect of the war. And cause, what should be the consideration on all these aspects? What should be the ethical consideration on all these aspects? Let's start the exercise. When cause of the war, what should be a just cause of the war or an ethically substantiated cause of the war? If war is for self-defense, if war is for to resist aggression, if war is for checking a bigger crime from happening, on these circumstances you substantiate the war. The war was necessary, even though it causes severe pain to humanity. So whether the cause, whether the cause is just or not, that is the first thing you should look at when you speak about ethical issues associated with the war. Whether the cause is led by greed or whether the cause is led by necessity and justice. Similarly, who is leading the war? Many a times war is led by terrorist groups who don't have the authority to declare war, who don't have the necessary authority to be the representatives of the people. To some extent, Hamas. We see in the Hamas launching attack on Israel. Now, whatever be the status of Israel and Palestine issue is, does Hamas has the authority to claim the ownership of Palestine people or Palestine population? At the end of the day, what they created is they created a hell lot of problems for the Palestinian people itself. So whether who is leading the war, is it the legitimate government that is leading the war, declaring the war, or is it a fringe elements, non-state actors like Hamas or India-Pakistan issues? You can see in Mujahideen, different other terrorist organizations. Who is exactly leading the war? Proportionality of, now these two are related to the cause. Now we are going into action. First thing, the action should be proportionality. If some terrorist attack is happening, it's not always right thing to go and attack the put nuclear bomb on the opposition countries. Your response should be proportional. One of the classical example, you can take the case of surgical strike. Despite differences in political opinion, or you support or you against the methodology of surgical strike, one thing it is, there has been necessary caution taken to ensure that it is not getting escalated into a full-fledged war. It has been pinpointed on certain pockets where the government is saying, or where the authorities are saying, there has been terrorist infringements, there has been launch pads, and only at that pinpointed area the attack was carried out. There was kind of proportionality in the response in surgical strikes. If this proportionality is not meant, you will attack cities. In Ukraine war, you might see many a times. The Russian attacks is many times directed towards different cities in the Ukraine. When you are attacking the cities, it is not between the government. It is the people. The bomb is being done on the bombing is done on the people, and the level of suffering is totally different if you are putting bombs or suffering, creating intentional suffering to the civilian population. Respect for international humanitarian laws, protection of prisoner of war, prohibition of torture, non-usage of weapons that pose unnecessary sufferings like bioweapons, like nuclear weapons, like those weapons who create like generational suffering. So you have to respect international laws. That is also a part of action of the war. Non-combatant immunity, that is one of the basic rules of just war theory. We'll see in detail in the upcoming slide what is just war theory. Like there are different organizations who are carrying out humanitarian work in the war zone areas. There are media people in the war zone areas. There are essential service people who carry out the essential services in the war zone areas. If necessary protection is not given to these kind of people, the level of suffering again increases. You might have related this with one of the Israel responses in the recent Palestine-Israel conflict. What Israel done is they completely isolated the Gaza Strip. The food, the water, the medicine, the electricity, everything has been cut off from the Gaza Strip. So more than bombing how people are dying without getting access to medical services. People are dying without getting access to essential services. So how you interpret this? Probability of success. There is also, now we are going into effect parts of the war. Probability, if a war has no probability of success, then what's the point of fighting the war? War should be between considerably equal powers. If it is not between equal powers, there will be crushing of the measures taken by the bigger power, like what we are seeing what Israel is doing in the Gaza. If you don't stand a chance to destroy the superpower, you have to build your strength first. We speak so much about the Chinese recent developments. In 2000s, you might see none of the Chinese aggression coming out, even in the South China Sea, or even in the different Indian borders. China was never an aggressor, not an active aggressor, at least during that time. Why it is so? Because during that time, China was in a strength gaining phase. It was building its economy, it was increasing its funding on military, it was modernizing its military, It was making supply chain dependence based on China. So China was building its strength during this time. Now the whole dynamics changes when China feels that they have acquired certain strength where they can even challenge the global powers or USA, at least in its own regions, in maybe in the South China Sea or regions where China has dominance. Even it can counter USA. That's where we see aggressive responses from China. That's when we see China's stand strengthening in the South China Sea, even from artificial islands to stand policies regarding Thailand, Philippines. So the whole attitude is changing. We see change in attitude in Indian borders also. So it's all based on power dynamics. Now, if this power dynamics is not being respected, the country will be thrashed. And that is what Hamas is facing. That is what different countries is being subjected to, terrorist groupings. You cannot fight a democratic country like India by being a terrorist group. Maybe you can, one time you find success, but the response can have severe consequences. Similarly, responsibility to protect. At the end of the day, we've spoken about social contract. What social contract is all about? Social contract put forward the idea that state has the responsibility to protect the rights of the people. Which rights? Rights to life, right to liberty, right to property. So at the end of the day, even with war or without war, responsibility of state cannot be compromised. And responsibility of state is what? To protect these rights of the people. If these rights are not being protected, then the war has certain issues. Then post-war, what is the scenario? Is there reconstruction or is there lasting peace efforts being done? This is also a responsibility of the state. Effort should be done to have a lasting peace on this regard. So these are different points. These are elements that you should consider when going for a war or launching a war or continuing a war. Now, how we generated these 9 number of points? Our approach was very simple. We thought on 3 different processes. That is, what is the cause of the war, what is the action should be taken during the war, and what is the effect of the war. Hope you are getting some kind of approaches, idea how you are applying different thought process in generating points. If you simply sit with this heading and try to build the points, it is quite difficult to build 8-9 points. But at least if you can divide this bigger argument into 3 different sections, the whole process of brainstorming becomes cakewalk. And that is whole what we are doing in these workshop classes. Now, ethical issues in Russia-Ukraine war, we are not too much focused on Russia-Ukraine war, as I already told. It was something related to a current development during that year. That's why the question come. If a future question come, it may be related to Israel-Palestine war, or it may be related to any other similar development that is happening in any other part of the world. So Russia agrees it is intervening to protect Russian minorities, and Russian other argument is sovereignty, related to question of Russia's sovereignty and expansion of NATO into the Eastern Europe. Ukraine sovereignty issues, like Russia is unilaterally coming and attacking the Ukraine or taking away its land, and the political sovereignty. Unilateral decision without negotiation with any other global groupings. Attack on cities, as I already told, disproportionate use of force, attacks on citizen, loss of lives, prolonging unsuccessful war, even after around more than nearly 2 years, 1.5 years has passed since the war has been declared. In February 2022, the war started. It's still continuing without any end in sight. So wider aspects, you can think impacts on global supply chain. We already seen agricultural crisis that is happening. We already seen crude oil prices going up. Impact on global economy, geopolitical rearrangement that is happening. So all these aspects you can bring into picture. Now this is another approach which I need to share. How to do an ethical analysis on any different developments that is happening. Suppose there is war happening between 2 countries. What it is all about to do an ethical analysis. Think from different theories. What exactly is virtue ethics? What virtue ethics of character action agent theory? What action agent theory is about? Certain, if you look at the deontology, utilitarianism, how you decide whether some activity is ethical or unethical. Looking at the action. If it is deontology, you will look at what motivated the action. If ethical principle, moral principles motivated the action, then it is ethical. In utilitarianism, what is the consequences of this action? If consequences are bringing happiness to the people, then utilitarianism, and according to utilitarianism, that act is ethical. On a similar note, that is, all these theories are focusing on action, while virtue ethics is focusing on agent. Focus area of virtue ethics is on character. And what does this character mean? Character mean one thing, whether the person is having right character. If he is having right values, then whatever act he is doing, that will be ethical. The focus of area is the agent, not the exact one or two particular action. So under virtue ethics, whether the decision to go to war reflects a right character. Indira Gandhi led the war against Bangladesh. Now, what it represents? Does it represent aggression? China's war or China's aggression in the 1962 war. China was the aggressor. China was coming beyond the borders. While India's 71 war for liberation of, that resulted in the liberation of Bangladesh. What it was, India was doing, it was an act of prudence. It was an act of justice. Humanitarian crisis was going on in the Bangladesh, and due to this crisis there has been innumerable number of immigrants coming into India. Since India is being affected, demography of the area is being affected, you can see still the consequences going on. Consequences like NRC, consequences like demographic, ethnic conflict in Assam. All these has roots in the immigration, that different waves of immigration that happened from Bangladesh. So there was act of justice in that war, in 1971 war. There was act of courage in that 1971 war. So one way or the other, it was led by right values, right virtues. So this is how you bring ethical perspective, virtue ethics perspective into war. Now if you look at the Hamas rocket attack on Israel, it may be considered reckless. It may be considered having a short-sighted view. Israel has one of the greatest military strength in the world. It's not possible for a terrorist organization to continue these kind of efforts against Israel. So for lasting peace, this is not the pathway. So one way or the other, it created a lot of mess to even the people it represents. So this is how you bring the virtue ethics elements. Now if you think from the perspective of deontological ethics, war might be considered ethically permissible if it's in the response to aggression. What are the moral principles that led to the war? Again, the just war theory approaches. If it is just cause, if the war is fought for just cause. Just cause means what? Against aggression or to prevent a bigger crime. Or is the war is the last resort, option of last resort. There is no other way. There is all the negotiation processes, multilateral engagements, all this has been done and dusted. There is no other way than going into the war. And the war is proportional to the whatever the objective, military or other political objective it need to achieve. And there is enough combatant immunity that is provided. If these four principles are upheld, then it is just war, or that is what we call it as just war theory. We also had a question regarding just war theory in UPSC. Four aspects, that is cause of the war, whether the cause of the war is just or not, whether the war is last resort or not, whether the actions of the war is proportional or not, whether enough combatant immunity is provided during the war. This four defines the just war theory. Now in utilitarianism, what will be the area of focus? Especially in wars that is fought to prevent a bigger crime. What is Israel's argument in launching a unprecedented attack on Gaza or Hamas. The idea is Israel need to protect itself from terrorism. If this attack, if Israel doesn't respond in one of the harshest way, then it's risking its future generations of Israelis or risking the future of Israel. So in order to prevent future pain, Israel need to create heckless pain, at least in this point of time. That is the utilitarian argument in this Israel-Palestine conflict that is being going on. Social contract we already discussed. State, when you think about the state has the duty to protect rights of the people. Now in war, anyway, whatever just war we are fighting, there will be compromise on this right to life, right to liberty, right to property of all these people. So some kind of values will be done against the state also. Palestinians have forced to fight because Israel has failed to bring in a negotiating. Like one argument you can bring in here is why Hamas or any terrorist organization is going into the fight with Israel, because despite having long efforts of peace building, efforts of negotiation, Palestine is one way or the other always in the back foot. Israel is advancing its terms on Palestine. Israel is advancing its protocols, its building of this segregating different areas of Palestine. Israel is doing one or the other activities throughout the phase, in the peaceful phase itself. So whatever the happenings that is going on during the peaceful phase, that is not directed towards a long-lasting peace, long-lasting solution to the problem of Israel and Palestine. And once this long-lasting solution is not coming into picture, this is always like a balloon that is just becoming bigger and bigger, and one day it will burst out. And that response we are seeing today, right now. Israel claims it has exhausted all other options before resorting into war. Justice, we have discussed just war theory in detail. Rights approach, war is fundamentally unethical due to inevitable violation of many individual rights to life, liberty, security, etc. Support wars that are conducted in self-defense. So this is the overall different how you can use different ethical perspectives, ethical theories to interpret a current happening. We are using these theoretical stances. These theoretical stances are tool to interpret, tool to open different dimensions in the happenings. Now you can apply this to any of the modern developments, any of the current developments, whether it is Women Reservation Bill, whether it is Data Protection Bill, Right of Privacy Bill, other controversy, whether it is the simultaneous election. Open up different perspective, virtue ethics perspective, deontological perspective, social contract perspective. That's how you build your ethical arguments. Hope I made the stance or whatever is the purpose of this lecture very clear. Conclusion, you can give an opportunistic, optimistic conclusion. Anyway, you are well aware to not to support any act of aggression or go to against the ethical principles. Finding a just peace, focus should be on finding a long-lasting peace that respects both Russia and Ukraine's interest in this is regarding this question, protects human rights and prevents future conflict should be the ethical priority. Though divisive issues remain, compromises built on shared ethical values like human dignity could provide a path forward. Like futuristic vision, future should be somewhere there should be a long-lasting peace or effort made between these two countries. On this note, you can conclude this answer. Let's move to the second question. Go through the question once, then we'll start the discussion. Yeah. So let's read the question once. What do you understand by the term good governance? How far recent initiatives in terms of e-governance steps taken by the state have helped the beneficiaries? Discuss with suitable examples. 2022 question. Very straightforward question. You can introduction start with what exactly is good governance. You can, so this is introduction itself is a part of demand of the question, or exactly what is asked, that is what you are writing in the introduction. So you have to fill 2 pages. You can slightly extend the introduction, right? Take half of the whole page or little beyond that. Here you will write what about good governance. Try to bring some aspects of good governance. Try to bring in 1-2 examples of it, so that the first part is not just answered in a single line.